Another player that is now resurfacing, unsurprisingly, because she's also totally implicated in this recently emerging scandal, and this is Ghislaine Maxwell, and I remember doing her chart years back. I don't remember what I said, but I do remember that her stack of Capricorn planets was pretty obviously implicated in all the trouble she ran into, because she was arrested in 2020 and convicted in 2022, but the trouble started before that, basically by the time Saturn got into Capricorn, whereupon it starts to conjoin all these Capricorn planets. And I'm sure she was probably already getting nervous when Saturn was in Sagittarius because it was going over her Venus, but certainly in Capricorn. And then things really fell apart. If you look at the arrest, then Saturn was returning. So she's got that Saturn at 29 Capricorn, and it was right there when she finally is arrested. Pluto is moving in on the Saturn. It's not quite there yet, but it's going in that direction. You also see that, where was it here that I saw that was really clear? Where's the Jupiter? Well, Jupiter's in Capricorn didn't help her. That's a great example of where a cycle that is meant to be positive with Jupiter isn't always going to be so positive. And in her chart, at least in part, you could point to Jupiter. And this is the classic thing where squares can come back to haunt you. Jupiter opposite Moon in Leo is one of the contributors in this chart to all that romantic indulgence in whatever depraved way it is manifested in there. You'd point to the Pluto. So her Pluto is right at the bottom of the chart, precisely square the ascendant. This Plutonian, you put Plutonian energy there, and the black moon. Notice Pluto conjoin the black moon, square the ascendant. That's classic, potentially anyway, depraved, subterranean sexual energy, and not always, but sometimes, I could even say more often than not, there will be childhood experiences that imprint the person and lead them into this kind of thing. Like, I've come across charts where a person will report really sordid sexual abuse, and then it's like they live their life replicating that abuse. It's almost like they need to be abused, or they need to be in conditions of being overpowered and all of that stuff for that chart to work somehow, because that's what they've imprinted. It's quite spooky that way. So, but, you can also say Capricorn, first of all, she was almost functioning like Epstein's administrator or manager, which is a classic Capricornian trait, and the eighth sign, which is the pure sign of sex. It's where you would put Scorpio in there, and so in her case, it's Capricorn, and the fact that if you're looking for a karmic outcome, I'm not sure. I could look deeper into this, how far back it goes, because you would always find that the start was at some point where Saturn would connect to it somewhere back here. Then it goes in here, and the karma comes home to roost. So, I didn't finish the Jupiter comment. Jupiter opposite Moon, square Neptune, makes it an indulgent, problematic Jupiter. So this Jupiter is pretty likely to be a problem when conditions align, to have a kind of karmic payout of sorts. And this was the arrest. She wasn't sentenced until 2022, and there, small thing, but a new moon in Cancer opposite the Capricorn planets. And then look at the Jupiter. Transiting Jupiter is in Aries, squaring the Capricorn planets. By then, Pluto is effectively working the Saturn, catastrophically that way. And but what I notice, in Uranus here is Uranus is squaring the Moon from the 12th house, which is where you get imprisoned. At the arrest, it was 9 degrees Taurus, which is also still square the Moon. So, a number of things like that coalesced. But now, let me see if I've got, one other thing. Okay, so in progression, what I noticed is that at the time of the debacle, I did it for 2020 when she was arrested. You notice her ascendant. So she starts out as a Gemini rising, which of course gives her communication powers, Mercury in Capricorn. She was doing all the convincing of the underage girls, bringing them into the ring. But then the ascendant progresses to Gemini, and to Cancer. Pardon me. Gemini is where it starts. To Cancer. She's 19, almost 20 years old, and then it enters Leo effectively around when the trouble really starts in 2019. And here's where, when you're looking at progressed ascendants, you say, okay, when she's born, Gemini rising, back here, Mercury ruled. Cancer rising is Moon ruled. Well, the Moon is in Leo, opposite Jupiter, square Neptune. And this is strongly suggestive of all the indulgence, including, in her case, I mean, it's depraved, but Leo is the sign of children. The Jupiter is excessive, indulgent, overexpansive. The Neptune is imagination running wild, fantasies, all that stuff. So she ends up being the organizer, but you can bet that she was really drawn into the lust and all the sexual stuff through this rulership. So the ascendant being Cancer from age 19 all the way to age 57. And this is where you see how slowly these ascendants progress, or can progress. Not always the case. Sometimes it's only 15 years on the low end, but either way, it's a long time. In this case, it would have been, it's almost 40 years. It's 38 years of the same ascendant. Well, then it shifts to the Sun, and the Sun draws it into the 8th house. It's pretty clear that even though you could say, well, look, I mean, the Sun trines Uranus, it trines Pluto, maybe not as tight, but certainly trines the Uranus, that could be better. Well, experience has shown that no, it's not. It's much worse. That's when everything came home to roost. And so it's looking like the Leo rising has not helped her one bit. I also noticed when I looked at her progressions for 2020, now, because here, this is the progressed chart, with the ascendant just inside Leo now. If you look at progressed to natal, you see that right around when the trouble starts, so you see at the end of 19, what happens is that the moon enters the progressed moon, right? Which is that, in this case, obviously very problematic moon linked to Jupiter and Neptune, enters Libra, which is the sign of love affairs, the 5th in her natal chart. And then it runs through all her squares. So to her Mars, even by 2019, it was to the Venus first, but then to the Mars, the Sun, Mercury, Saturn, all that there, to the point where she's basically arrested in here and convicted in here with the progressed moon doing this kind of action. And there's all kinds of other action in here as well, where you notice, for instance, progressed Venus opposing Pluto in 2020, 2021, 2020, 2021. Let's see. Yeah, from May 20 to the end of 21. So that would be, because Venus is up by now, yeah, it's showing opposite Pluto, Pisces to 10 degrees. And you also have progressed Mars opposing the moon. You've got progressed ascendant opposite Saturn. Now that would have been because her Saturn is, her natal Saturn is super late in Capricorn. So that was when the progressed ascendant was in very late Cancer. That's already a problem. Then in Leo, it just continued the downtrending. So lots and lots of action, including here too, all kinds of solar arcs, Sun opposite Pluto. Oh, that's later, sorry. This is yet to come, but Mercury opposite Pluto in 22, Mars opposite Uranus in 20, Jupiter square Mercury in 20, Saturn square Mars in 22, Uranus square Saturn in 19, and so on. I mean, it's just loaded with trouble. But now, when we look at the current situation, it's starting to sound like she may be a major threat to the Orange Man. And here's where Remember, this thing has come up so many times. Look at this cluster of planets in Capricorn triggering that infamous Access Hollywood T-square, because he's got his, see if I have his chart here somewhere. He's got his Mercury at 8 Cancer, Eris 7 degrees Aries, Neptune 5 degrees Libra. So her planets are down here in the dreaded spot where Mars was in October of 2016 when the Access Hollywood T-square got triggered. So this woman is definitely a threat to this guy. There's no question. And she may know more than, she may know too much. And apparently right now, her case is in front of the Supreme Court. And someone said, I heard a legal analyst say, well, to the Supreme Court, she's going to say, the President of the United States says that the entire Epstein file with all the accusations was created by Democrats, that it's a hoax. So then why am I being put in jail for this, if this is the case? Good question. But she's going to know all kinds of things that would be really, really damaging. And here's where normally you would try to cut a deal to say, well, look, I'll give you the heads of all these people and then you reduce my jail sentence or some such thing. But how is that going to happen with this DOJ? To me, that just seems incredibly improbable, even though the whole thing is explosive. It can go nuclear at any moment. And let's face it, if you have 1, 2, 3, 4 planets in Capricorn, including the Sun on the early side, Mars on the early side where Saturn is right now, squaring from Aries, and then you've got till still into 2028, this Saturn is getting squared. I don't see how this person gets off. You know, to me, that seems a little preposterous. I mean, maybe later when Jupiter reaches Virgo and here in the summer of 27, there's a trine, but I don't know. I mean, she's been in prison. Jupiter in Taurus didn't help her. Why should Jupiter in Virgo? I'm skeptical, you know, that this is going to go anywhere for her. But I've got to keep an eye on it because she is, I think, now very much part of the problem that he's dealing with and how he might try to find his way out.